Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us. Once again, we just wrapped a news conference from the Texas Senate Democrats, followed now by Republican Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Let's listen in to his news conference, which begins right now.
Is with me so he can ask and answer other specific questions you may have and address some of the issues that were brought up. You can always tell the side that's losing, the side that's speaking the loudest and most emotional. And I think what's happened since some Democrats went to Washington is that the message has shifted as people have read the bill and know what's in the bill. It's not about voter suppression. It's not about restricting anyone's right to vote. And it's clear. The idea of Jim Crow 2, or whatever they want to call it, has just fallen flat, as did their trip to Washington, where they gained no ground. You have to remember that the main reason they went to Washington, in their own words, was they want to federalize Texas elections. Federalize Texas elections. They want the federal government to take over how states vote. 65% of Texans, that means that's Republicans and Democrats and independent voters, are against federalizing our elections. Secondly, the phrase Jim Crow 2.0, I'm really getting tired of hearing it. And so are people in Texas. I won't speak for every Republican, but a lot of Republican office holders. We find it offensive. It's reading between the lines attack on us as somehow we're trying to deny people of color to vote, as Democrats did for 100 years in the South. Democrats did, not Republicans. Is offensive. As Lieutenant Governor, I would never bring a bill to the floor that I thought disenfranchised any voter. I'm personally offended by it. If you want to disagree with the bill, disagree with the bill. If you don't want to be divisive, as they said they don't want to be, then don't use phrases and terms like that. That just incites people to think things that aren't true. Words like that are divisive. There's a fear factor they talked about. The real fear factor is not what they say, though. The factor is that causes fear among the Democrats is by their own data. Some of it leaked, some of it public. More people of color voted for Republican in the last election than ever before. We don't, as Republicans, we're trying to increase voter turnout. We don't fear what people are going to do in the ballot box. As long as we have a system that is secure, we'll abide by the decision of the voters. And election after election after election since the 1990s, at least statewide, the Democrat hasn't won. And we've increased turnout. Do you know that in 2011 when we passed voter ID, which Democrats are still saying is bad, some of them alluded to it here on at the podium, do you know that we've increased voting turnout in Texas more than any other state in the country? Up over 40%. Did you hear any of them say that when they were here? Have you heard any Democrats say that anywhere? But those are the facts. Would you all print that at least once? Because I don't even read it in anything I see in print. Maybe once I've seen it. We lead the country in increasing vote in Texas. In the gubernatorial elections from 2014 to 2018, I know this personally since I ran both times statewide, We've increased turnout 76%. Do you hear them talking about that? 76%. And I know I was involved, in voter ID, again, one of the authors. They made these same arguments. Oh, you're going to suppress the vote. This is voter intimidation. You don't want people of color to vote. They can't get an ID. If you look at the polling, over 80% of Democrats in America and Texas support voter ID. People of color want a secure ballot process as well as Anglos. The Democrats are always shorting their own constituents. Their constituents support voter ID. So let's put that to bed once and for all. People of color want a mail-in ballot system that's easy but secure. The Democrats act as if, in fact, they almost said it without saying it. We don't want people of color to vote. Of course we do. We're gaining in votes with people of color. 7 counties flipped in the valley this time. Pretty much 80 to 90% people of color voted Republican in some of those counties, and some were very close. In this past election, we had 2.5 million new voters that didn't have any primary history. We didn't know how they were going to vote. I was glad they voted. I was confident that our message was a winning message with voters. People of color. People of color in the Valley work in the oil and gas industry. They didn't want to lose their jobs if Joe Biden shut that industry down. People of color in the Valley want a secure border. They're being overrun. Their Democrat mayors are pleading for help. People of color support Republican positions on a secure border all over the state, all over the country. People of color support charter schools. People of color support funding the police and having a safe neighborhood. People of color support lower taxes. This whole idea that we don't want people of color to vote is ridiculous. As I've often said, if I go into a room of 100 Hispanic voters who have always voted Democrat, and I tell those 100 Hispanic voters who have always been Democrat voters, I'm pro-life, I'm pro-economic opportunity, I'm pro-charter schools, I'm pro-border security, and especially the pro-life issue. I'm pro-family. I'll walk out of that room with a lot of Democrat voters voting for me. If a Democrat walks into a room of 100 Hispanic Republican voters who have always voted Republican, and the Democrat says, I'm for abortion, I want open borders, I want to kill charter schools, I want to raise your taxes, they don't walk out with one converted voter. You see, the fear factor is that they are on the wrong message. And people of color in the state of Texas do not want to federalize our elections. What you don't hear the Democrats talking about, and if they really want to come together, and look, we've always had a great relationship in the Senate in a bipartisan manner. I'm obviously a conservative. We're a conservative party. We're a conservative state. But the majority of what we do is bipartisan. And we do work well together. All the people that were up here, I worry that Washington is creeping into their party in Texas. See, it's divisive in Washington. It hasn't been divisive here, and I don't want to see that happen. I mean, if they want to go to Washington, that's up to them. They talk about disenfranchised voters. The voters who were disenfranchised were their own voters because they weren't here in the Capitol last week. But that's up to them. We still had a quorum. But if they really do want to solve this issue, one, let's drop this Jim Crow 2.0 rhetoric. It's offensive. It's tough to sit down and negotiate with someone when you're basically calling them a racist. Okay? So to the Democrats, why don't you knock that off? Number two, quit talking about voter restriction and voter suppression. This bill is not about that. They know it. If there's some issues they want to tweak and fix, sit down at the table. We're willing to listen. But if they want to talk about issues like 24-hour voting and drive-in voting, those are non-starters. You know, they talk about we're repealing. Look, you can't repeal something that was never in the law. We didn't have 24-hour voting in the law or drive-in voting. And people say, well, Dan, but drive-in voting, doesn't that make sense? No. It's electioneering in an automobile is what it is. You know, we're prohibited, as you know, to go within so many feet of a polling place or any campaign worker. You know, you have to stand back where you hold your signs and hand out, you know, the leaflets and those types of things. And when you go to vote, anyone listening to me, when you go to vote in person, you don't take your family and your friends in the voting booth with you. You don't come in and say, hey, come on, help me go up my ballot here, Brian. What am I voting on? But that's what happens in an automobile, 5 or 6 people. So the reason we don't have drive-in voting is because you're supposed to be able to vote in private. And the 24-hour voting, again, in Harris County, you can't have 1 out of 254 counties make up their own rules. And that's what this bill is about. We're saying you can't do that. The state decide. The Supreme Court said states decide the election laws, not counties and cities. We give them some parameters of how many hours, and we've expanded those, and Brian will talk about those issues. But 24-hour voting, if you're working a 4 to midnight shift, you can vote before you go to work. If you are working the midnight to 8 shift, you can vote when you get off. Very tough to get volunteers and workers overnight. It's not needed. So 24-hour voting isn't needed. It's not again, we're not repealing anything. It was never the law. So we've expanded voting. We're expanding voting. We're making it easier. We're making it more secure. And if the Democrats truly want to sit down and work with us, let's knock off the divisive rhetoric. Let's knock off the talk of suppression and we're trying to stop people of color from voting. Again, I heard all that in an all-night debate when I sat on the Senate floor back in 2011, I guess it was, of how we're suppressing the vote. And since then, what's happened? People have more confidence in voting in Texas. More people are voting. More people are registering to vote. Do you know that in 2011, only about 58% of registered voters voted? What's happened 10 years later? Almost 68% of registered voters are voting. And we're registering more voters than we've ever registered before. So people in Texas, Texas Association of Business, not a Republican, not a Democrat organization. They did a poll in May. 95% of all Texans said it's easy to vote in Texas. So to my Democrat senators, first of all, don't talk about House bills up here. Talk about the Senate bill that passed, okay? We can't debate you on another bill. What did we present on the floor? What did we pass on the floor? That's the bill we need to talk about. But if you want to sit down and break bread, breakfast is always ready to be served in the dining room. But don't come in attacking me for something I'm not, or the Senate for something it isn't. And when you have a press conference, how about acknowledging some of the good things in the bill? That would be, if I can acknowledge some things maybe they want to fix, how about can they acknowledge some of the good things? For example, in Texas law today on election day, your company has to give you off to vote. Now, Bryan Hughes has changed that. So on every day of early voting, if you want to vote early, I mean, you can't do it multiple times, but your business has to give you off a day during early vote. How about talking about that? How about the minimal hours that we're expanding? We're just setting minimums. Counties can vote from 6 in the morning till 9 at night if they want. It's up to them. So how about being honest about this bill? This is a bill to expand voting. If you have some issues with some things, then sit down and talk to us. But if you're going to come in and insult us and attack us and ascribe motives that are not a part of this, then it's hard to have a discussion. But I'm glad they're back. I hope the House comes back before the end of the month so we've already passed these bills. We could get all this done, you know. We could get all this done before the end of this month. And our state employees could get paid. And by the way, to all the state employees, about 2,100 of you, it's nice to hear that they're going to take care of their staff or so. I don't know if everybody is. But if they don't come back before the end of August, that sends a clear message that they don't really care about the staff if they get paid or not. I can assure you we'll figure that out. But if the Democrats don't come back in the House, they're okay if 2,100 people get furloughed, apparently, and don't get paid. I'm not. We're not going to let that stand. Bryan, I'm going to open up to you to answer a couple of questions, make a couple of points, and then we'll open up to questions.
Thanks, Governor Patrick. A couple of points about the bill. And I know you're looking at the bill. We encourage folks to read the bill, not tweets or generalizations, but what is in the bill. What about poll watchers? Under current law in Texas, been the law for a long time, poll watchers are allowed to observe activities except for the voter casting their ballot. And it is against the law, current law, against the law for an election worker to keep a poll watcher from doing that. That's current law today. All this talk about turning loose these partisan poll watchers is crazy. The law today gives poll watchers authority to observe activities. That is not changing. Poll watchers are, of course, Democrats, Republicans. They're from various candidates. They're the eyes and ears of the public. Most poll watchers who have testified happen to be retired, and some of them up in years, females. They didn't look that intimidating to me, but they have a job to do. They're the eyes and ears of the public, and they come from all parties and all candidates. And let's talk about making it easy to vote. Governor Patrick mentioned that now your employer must let you off work if your hours don't allow you on early voting. What about being in line? For a long time in Texas, we've had the law where if you, on election day, make it to the polls before they close, but you're in line, you must be allowed to vote no matter how long it takes. We have not had that protection for early voting, and of course most people now vote early. So in Senate Bill 1, for the first time, that protection, if you make it and you're in line when the polls close for early voting, you will be allowed to vote. What about fixing technicalities on your mail ballots? Many mail ballots get thrown out because of technicalities, and there's no way to fix them. Now, under Senate Bill 1, for the first time, a way for voters to correct those problems so their votes will be counted. Expanding early voting, and look at page 10 and page 11 of the bill in case there are questions. Page 10, page 11 of the bill. We expand early voting in 55 counties across the state. Right now, in our biggest counties, for the second week after you open up 12 hours, we're expanding that to more counties, affecting many, many Texans. Adding Saturday voting and for Sunday voting. Right now, they must do at least 5 hours. Under Senate Bill 1, at least 6 hours. Across the board, opportunities to vote are being expanded and opportunities for folks to have their votes count. And one more thing about drive-through voting. I'm sure you've read, I hope you have, how during drive-through voting, the experiment in Harris County last fall, the election administrator said, we're going to stop this before Election Day because we're concerned the votes may not get counted. That's kind of a big deal. I think voters of all races and parties want their votes to count. This bill makes it easy to vote, and it makes it hard to cheat. Is there voter fraud? Of course there is. That's why I have a county commissioner in my district under indictment, out on bail, for mail ballot fraud. This is happening all over the state. We don't know how pervasive it is. How much fraud is okay? Well, none is okay. And that's why we want to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And I just want to share with you something we read last time. I don't want this to get missed. This is sworn testimony. This is a lady who thought she was being assisted. She was relying on a woman to help her use the voting machine. And she says this: I had the idea she was giving me like a tour of how to do those things, and she was going to leave. So by the time I told her, okay, let me vote on my own, she said, no, you already voted. Sworn testimony in a Texas court about someone claiming to help a voter, misleading a voter, overcoming their will, coercing them. This happens in Texas. And by the way, the voters this happens to tend to be elderly voters and voters with limited English proficiency. Those vulnerable Texans deserve protection. We don't care what D.C. says or what the national media says. We will protect these voters. That's what this bill's about. And we're so thankful that already in Texas, we have more in-person early voting than many states, more than New York, more than New Jersey, more than the president's home state of Delaware, which has none. Now, some will say they did pass a bill to add it. Once their bill takes effect, they'll still have less than Texas. We already have a lot of opportunities. We're giving more. This is about easy to vote and hard to cheat.
Any questions?
Is this the end of the bill?
But,
For different counties.
Pardon?
What's the rationale for having some counties with expanded? Some
yeah, Brian, it's a very simple explanation.
So the law for some time has treated larger counties differently because of the volume of folks they deal with and the technology they have. So we are actually expanding that. Before, only our largest counties had to have 12 hours in the second week of early voting, had to have Saturdays and Sundays. Now we're expanding that to 55 more counties. We want to get it to where every county, some of our smallest counties that lack the resources and technology, can still have less hours, but they'll still have more than they have today. So we're bringing more counties into more hours of voting. They're being reduced to nowhere, and we're bringing more counties into the full protection. That's what this is about.
You heard the rationale from one of the Democratic senators, that like 40 Democratic ones, or 40 Republican ones that were expanding, and the three major ones that are losing hours are Democratic. I mean, does that play a role, or is it, you're saying it's purely population?
There was some sleight of hand there because no counties are being reduced. You're correct. Those counties that are being added are Republican and Democrat, but no counties are being reduced unless you're talking about 24-hour voting. Again, an experiment that Harris County tried. Now, y'all let us know if you find anyone else who's done that. We haven't found any other county or any other place in the country where that's been tried. Let's talk about working folks that need opportunities to vote. That's why we have the law in place now for early voting. Once we pass this, it says if you get to the polls and the line is long, but you make it there before they close, you must be allowed to vote. That's why your employer now for early voting will have to let you off work. So let me be clear. We are not reducing early voting hours anywhere. We're just bringing more counties into the expanded hours, and for all counties, we're adding hours on the weekends. I want to be clear. I'm glad you asked about that.
They had like 10 p.m. voting?
No, sir. No one is losing. In fact, now the number of hours that they have to add are expanded. Again, they will say, "Well, we could have done 24-hour voting, even though we didn't." Well, that's not being taken away. That was never in the election code. So to say that any county is losing hours is just false. That's just false.
And I'm sure our Democrats didn't imply this. These extra counties are added. If they happen to be Republican or maybe less in color, I'm sure they don't want to deprive those people of the same opportunity to have voting hours that our biggest counties have, that the Democrat counties have. So it had nothing to do, in fact, till they said it, wasn't even aware of it. But obviously, as you expand, you pick up all kind of counties. That was just another kind of divisive argument, I thought, that didn't need to be made.
Since the end of the regular session,
Yeah.
particularly with the conference committee process, the Democrats have said they've been locked out of the process. Why not include some of the provisions in the bill that they're introducing this special session?
Yeah, well, we've obviously, Senator Hughes, we went through a lot of amendments on the floor, the first time, the second time. That's when you get a chance to change a bill. And if the majority of voters decide to take the amendment, they vote for it. If they don't, I mean, it's winning and losing on any bill. Any input that they wanted to have, we've been happy to take it. But I want to go back to something I said. If they start from the premise that this is Jim Crow 2.0, and that somehow we don't want people of color voting, well, it's pretty tough to sit down and have a good discussion about a bill when you walk in the room accusing people of being something they're not, and if their motives are not pure. So if they want to knock that off, that would be helpful, because I really haven't heard that on other things. I've been here now a long time. I've negotiated a lot of bills with every one of those senators who was up here, and I have respect for them all, and we work well together. The rhetoric they've used on this bill sounds more like Washington, D.C. than Texas Democrats to me, and it's not helpful, and it won't get anywhere.
To the point you made about the amendments, obviously, as we know, 9 of the senators were in D.C. during the floor discussion. Was there any sort of discussion with the Senate Democrats that went to D.C. to maybe, hey, what, are you guys coming back? Maybe to hold off on discussion on the election bill until they come back? I mean, we still have 2 weeks left in this special session.
Look, if you leave here, I don't think you should leave, quite frankly. And look, we had a quorum here, but it was only because 4 Democrats on their own. It wasn't like they worked out a deal, like the ones who went to Washington got with the other 4 and said, well, you all stay behind so you can do a quorum. That was an independent. It was very clear. Senator Zaffirini, Senator Hinojosa, Senator Whitmire, Senator Lucio all made that decision independently on their own. So had they not, we wouldn't have had a quorum either. So I don't think you should break quorum. In fact, I think we need to change the quorum law. We're the only state that requires 2/3 to show up. Most states are 50% plus 1 or 50%. Because you can't have Republicans or Democrats, either party, holding democracy hostage because they're losing on an issue and they decide we're going to leave the state, whether it was New Mexico or Oklahoma in the past or Washington, D.C. now. That's not what the folks back home expect. They expect you to show up for work here. But it had a group of them gone, 2 or 3 of them, 4 of them, that's their right. I would have had no problem with that. But when I didn't know, look, the only person that told me they were leaving was Carol Alvarado, Senator Alvarado. I didn't hear from the other 8. I didn't know who was going or who wasn't going. No one gave me a courtesy call. I actually thought 2 or 3, which I thought maybe 4 or 5 were, I mean, I knew the House was going, but I didn't know. I didn't know when they were coming back. Senator Alvarado called me the other day and said they'd be back for this Thursday, which I appreciated. So that was their choice to make. The Senate's not going to stop working unless they break quorum, where we can't work. And this talk about the arrest, and the comments being made by some House members about, this is, first of all, no one gets arrested, so the public understands. No one gets arrested and put in jail. You just go find them at home or work, and you bring them to the Capitol. Okay? And if they broke quorum here, and I didn't have Democrats in the next special session so that we could conduct business, if I knew they were in the state, I'm not using the word arrest, but I would instruct our Sergeant of Arms to instruct the Department of Public Safety, if they're at home or if they're office, to go and say, Senator, you have to come back to the Capitol. That's how we work. And I trust our members aren't going to break quorum. But it's not arresting. It's not dragging people off to jail. It's that they've just blown up that rhetoric. Again, divisive language.
Governor, could you elaborate a little bit on what you just said about you think the quorum laws should be changed?
Yeah.
Specifically now.
Well, I just think we ought to do it like, I don't know if it's all 49 other states, but I have been apprised during this process. I wasn't here in 2003, but some people said, what are you all doing in Texas? Every other state, so again, you'd have to do the homework on it, but virtually every other state has 50% of the people have to be there. Because you can't have this. It's anarchy at the Capitol. It's one thing for people to go and take to the streets if they want. That's their right. And look, again, the senators under the rules currently, they have a right to leave the state. But are they going to stay away forever? I mean, what happens if, let's say they've come up with this game between themselves. This time the senators will leave for 30 days. And then when you come back, then the next time, then we'll leave for 30 days. I mean, we have to conduct the people's business. And so I think our laws should be like other states, the rules on this. Now, the catch-22 is it would have to be a constitutional amendment. And I guarantee you, if you put this on a constitutional amendment for the folks, they'll vote in favor of having us here to do our work. People aren't going to vote for people to take off. But you have to have 2/3 to have a constitutional amendment. So I would need 3 Democrats to join Republicans to change that, and you'd have to do that in the House. I'm not so sure we couldn't get some of those votes, Dave. Maybe, maybe not the first time, but there's some Democrats that aren't happy about this either, no matter what they say publicly.
Sir,
yes.
During the regular session, during
Yes.
during special session, we've heard and seen statements and sworn testimony from groups like the NAACP and MALDEF who have said that their members feel oppressed by the language of the bill and have used terms like the ones that you described.
Right.
What is your response to these organizations, especially the ones who have requested to have conversations with the authors of the bill?
It's a great question. At each stage of the process, the bill has changed. There was testimony in the committee in regular session, testimony in special session, amendments offered by Democrats and Republicans, and the bill has changed based on testimony from civil rights groups, from disability rights groups. Everybody has input in this process. Now, most of the folks that we heard from that were offended by generalizations that they had read online or some characterization of the bill. When we talk about the provisions of the bill, there was not much to argue about. But of course, we make changes to these bills as we hear from Texans all across the spectrum. And that's always going to be that way.
The longer this goes on, the more people read the bill. It's at danpatrick.org, correct?
Yes, sir.
You go to danpatrick.org and read it and find out anything that, I mean, look at all the good stuff that's in the bill. And there's no voter suppression in the bill. There just isn't. People can interpret things, but if Democrats keep saying 2.0, they're trying to stop people of color from voting. That's why some of the the citizens out there say, I'm against that bill, because they're hearing that from leadership. Leadership on the Democrat side need to take responsibility for this divisive language.
Senator and Governor, you all talked about some of the changes to the bill, the no ballot hearing, the changes to disability that you all have made in response to some of the groups that spoke out. What we heard from some Democrats right before this was that when they went to conference committee during the regular session, then the bill that came back they did not recognize, and they sort of feel like there was a switcheroo there at the end. So I think that they feel that there was some bad faith there. Is there any sort of guarantees that you could say to get them to play ball or anything like that?
The bill is online. Amendments are offered on the floor. They're offered in committee in broad daylight. Everyone has input. That's how this process is always going to work. That's one of the reasons the Senate passed this bill early, to give us plenty of time. If the House passes a different version, we need a conference committee, there'll be more time to get that done. We're doing everything we can to keep this process from being rushed at the end. But whatever happens, there'll be amendments on the floor, amendments in committee, and debates on the floor. Everybody's going to have input in this process.
Did you fight for your version of the bill?
Yes, of course.
And we've said this so many times, this will be the last time I'll say it, the changes that were made in the bill were made by the House in conference and not by the Senate. Period, end of story. The records are the records, the facts are the facts. I don't even want to go down that road again. We've moved beyond that. But every bill that ever passes goes to conference and comes out with sometimes some surprises out of conference. Every bill, you all know that. And but what we passed in the Senate, we stand behind. Right. There is no souls to the polls issue. We didn't put that in the bill. It's not in our bill. Right. And that was a red herring also, because the Democrats, there's another divisive thing. Democrats said, they're stopping us from voting at 9 in the morning. It's never, anywhere in the state, no one's ever voted at 9 in the morning on Sundays. But it's not in our bill. It wasn't in our bill. It was put in conference. And as you know, in conference sometimes the very last edition that comes out, members sign off on it and bring it to the floor. But we didn't support that, or overturning elections. Not in our bill. Won't be in our bill. We won't allow it in the bill.
That's right.
We'll take two last questions and we'll wrap it up. Yes, sir.
Now that the Senate has passed all or nearly all of the special session agenda, what's on tap for the next 2 weeks while the House still lacks support?
Well, our folks have put in 2 weeks of work in about 1 week, and so our members are standing down. They're on a 5-hour notice, so they can, if they're home. I mean, we have session tomorrow, but they're on 5-hour notice to be at the Capitol should the Democrats come back. But I mean, the House would have to come back in time, get bills through committee, pass them, and send them out. I hope they do. Look, the Democrats don't have an end game here. At the end of the day, this bill is going to pass. Pretty much in the form it's in. We're always willing to listen if they have suggestions that we think don't change the focus of the bill. But this bill is going to pass. Is it in August or September, October? Is it next February? Is it next June? This bill is going to pass because the people of Texas of all color want safe and secure elections. And the longer this goes on, the weaker their argument gets. I know their argument gets weaker. It gets weaker. And there was one other line that was brought up about people waiting 6 hours in line to vote at TSU. Let me just, again, clear the facts up on that. Yeah, there were people who voted forever at TSU. Who ran the election at TSU? The Democrats in Harris County. Republicans had nothing to do with that. They're in charge of the elections in Harris County. Secondly, why was the line so long at TSU? Because I think they had 20 voting machines, or 10, whatever. Half of them were Republican and half were Democrat. Well, 90% of the vote at TSU or higher was going to be for Democrat. Why would you put half the machines in there Republican machines? It made no sense. The reason TSU students and others stood in line for so long was because the ineptitude of the people running the election for the Harris County. So don't put that on the Republicans. You don't want 6-hour lines. Be smarter about how you position your machines in certain polling places. Last question?
Last question.
Yeah. That's it? Okay.
Well, since the House quorum break,
yeah.
I know that you guys have really flaunted the fact that you all passed pretty much the entire
we did.
Agenda. So I did want to, while I have both of you here, I did want to ask about one separate bill, for the critical race theory.
Yeah.
So why push through a bill that explicitly crossed out the requirements of the teaching of the Native American history, KKK, and Martin Luther King?
Once again, divisive language by the left that's not accurate. Good.
Great question. Section 113 of the Texas Administrative Code contains our curriculum standards, the TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And in there today, before the bill passes and after the bill passes, in that bill you will find Dr. King. You'll find dark things like the Klan and the horrible things our country has been through, and the challenges of slavery, the civil rights movement, women's suffrage, all of those references are in the Texas Elements today, and they will be in tomorrow. That's not going to change. That's passed by the State Board of Education with input from teachers and from parents, and that is not going to change. The bill is about those broad concepts like the American dream, an opportunity for every American, regardless of color, regardless of race, regardless of national origin. That's what the bill's about. The bill over in the House put a specific reading list in, and we heard from teachers and from the State Board of Education that said, hey, we have a process for that. We already have those in the curriculum. Take those specific things out. George Washington was also removed. Does that mean he's not going to be taught? Of course not. Dr. King's in the curriculum. George Washington is there. Women's suffrage is there. That is not going to change. So those specific words are not in this bill because they are over in the elements of the curriculum approved by the State Board. That's not going to change, and we're making it very clear. And let me say this. Not only will those elements be allowed to be taught about Dr. King and about women's suffrage, they're going to be required. So that is not going to change. We will teach the whole truth about Texas history. That's not going to change.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on this as we close the press conference is I saw the Biden administration wisely today pulled down a person who, and a handbook that had been written about critical race theory. I have people all the time, because this is a new issue to a lot of people. Well, what does it all mean? And, the best definition I've seen is that, racism is something obviously that can be learned by any individual of any color, when you come into the world and your experiences in your environment and who mentors you. I mean, we'd like to think no one would ever teach anyone to be a racist. But critical race theory says you're born a racist. It says, if you're white, you're a racist. Tell a kid in the first grade you're white and you're a racist, or you're black and you're a victim. We don't judge people by the color of their skin. And parents in America are not going to tolerate this. Black parents, brown parents, white parents. No one wants their kid to go to the first grade or the fifth grade, come home and said, my teacher told me today that because I'm black, I'm a victim. I don't have the same opportunities. Or that white child that comes home and says, I was told I was a racist and don't like black people. I've got 6 grandkids. And my kids are grown now. And I help other teenagers in other things. The new generation of people, of children, don't see black, white, and brown. Did they see that back in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s in this country? And, I grew up in part of that era, not the 30s and 40s. Yeah, I remember segregation. I remember that. Yeah, there was a time in America. It was a terrible time in America. And we've come so far, and we still have ways to go. But when I see kids playing with each other, the black kids and the brown kids and the white kids are playing together, and they're each other's friends. And if we send them to school and tell them they should be each other's enemy, that's just not what we want in America. Nobody wants that. You're going to see more parents take their kids out of school and homeschool them than you've ever seen before if this takes hold. Unfortunately, it's not taking hold. America is standing up. Of course we have to teach about the sins of our country and those darkest times ever of racism in this country and slavery in this country. Yes, you have to teach it so history does not repeat itself. But to start today to tell anyone of any color this is who you are by the fact that you were born, that's just not acceptable. And we will fight. And I say we, I'm talking about white, black, and brown people, parents, grandparents will fight against that. Don't tell my child they can't achieve great success because they're black or brown. And don't tell my child that because he was white, his success is somehow, not fair. And so that's what this is all about. And this has been brought up by the left. The Republicans and the conservatives didn't bring this up. The left brought this up. And we will stand tall. And look, every bill we passed, I'm proud of every bill we passed this session and in the special session. Hey, thank all of you. I know you've had a long day. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
As Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick leaves the news conference room there, we just want to remind you, you've been watching this live stream on KXAN Live. We've had dueling news conferences about 15 minutes apart, first from the Texas Senate Democrats there in that very same room, followed by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and State Senator Hughes, in particular discussing on both sides these elections voting bills that are stalled right now in the Texas state legislature. The Texas Senate already passed this re-upped bill led by Republicans. The House cannot at the moment because more than several dozen Democrats remain in D.C., which broke quorum in the House and has prevented the House from proceeding with business because of that. And we're seeing there, you may have seen at the bottom of the screen there, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick setting parameters about meeting with Democrats to discuss some of their suggested changes to the voting bill. He's saying they need to cut out the rhetoric about calling this bill Jim Crow 2.0, or that this is voter suppression or is meant to keep voters of color from casting a ballot. Meanwhile, the Democrats on their side are saying that these measures that the Republicans are wanting to pass at this time are meant to keep people away from the polls and to suppress votes. So, again, I'm not sure how we proceed from here as both these sides kind of go back and forth with the war of words, but we will continue to cover it as closely as we have. Our Wes Rappaport was in the room there, and we'll be turning some stories about this. You can also find extended coverage over on our website, kxan.com, and on the KXAN News app, so please download it, as I always say, if you haven't done so. All right, everybody, thanks again for watching. I'm Will Dupree in the KXAN Live studio. We'll see you back here at another time. Everybody take care.